Hello backpackers, this is Juan from Juan Backpacks, and I'm here today to do a review of the Zpacks camp sandals, or camp shoes. They're not really sandals, they're shoes. So I picked these up a couple months ago when they came back in stock, and honestly I was a bit skeptical of them. I've tried a number of camp shoes, Mayfly Magos, some other companies that make different sandals. But I will say this, I'm really against Crocs in the backcountry. Can't bring myself to doing it. Big, clunky. I know a lot of people are gonna take issue with that, but I think for the weight, they're just not have as much value. So I was looking for something super light, but comfortable, where I thought they were also durable, and then let my feet breathe. And that's really an important piece for me. When I'm at camp, if you look at all of my camp shoes, I did a video on the camp shoe shootout that you can find on my YouTube channel. I talked about a lot of different shoes, and the reason I pick open-toed shoes for camp shoes, I really just like the idea of airing out my feet and having them out in the open, obviously unless it's winter time. Even then, the Zpacks camp shoes might come in handy. So let's take a quick look at these before we start talking about it. So this is the Zpacks camp shoes. These are less than 2 ounces. I want to say combined 1.7 ounces. That's crazy. Very thin, so they're packable. You can slide them in against your pack in the front pocket. You could roll them. I don't know why you'd want to roll them because it makes them bigger, but you can roll them. You could roll them together. I typically basically just kind of put them bottom to bottom when I'm packing them away, and then I slide the heel part of the shoe over top, and it just kind of keeps them together. And I slide them down in my front pocket against the actual pack. And that seems to work really well. So let's take a quick look around of these. So that the padding, the bottom of this is foam. And so this reminds me a lot of homemade pair of camp shoes I made. Not much of a DIY person, but I made some camp shoes out of some foam inserts from a pair of old sneakers. And that actually worked okay. It reminds me of that, but a little bit thicker and a little bit more durable. And it does have some tread on the bottom. And in using these, I've used them really in 2 nights in camp so far. So I don't have a lot of use, but I feel like I have a good feel for them, because camp shoes are like one of the things that have been in search of and tried many. So I have a lot of comparisons to these. The treads are really nice on the bottom. They really work in camp, just around camp and around the tent. I wouldn't go like hiking in these. I think the use case is just around camp, maybe walking, a short distance where it's not too bad a terrain to like fill your water or something like that. But really, these are really camp shoes for around the tent. So you got the sole here. You got a heel band here that goes on your heel, right, to hold it in place. You also have an adjuster here where if you pull on this, and a little clasp here, if you pull on this, you can actually tighten this up against your heel. If you have like really skinny ankles or something like that, you can tighten this up. So that's nice. And it has like 2 loops coming up from the sandal. So it really kind of has these angles that work well to keep it secure on your foot, which I really like. So as far as being on my foot, this strapping system that uses basically stretchy bungees, very small stretchy bungees, works really well. It does secure it to your foot nicely, where you don't feel like the thing's flopping off of your feet, or that you have to keep adjusting it all the time, because once you adjust it, it's pretty good. The thing that I found, like at least on my feet, is the shoes had a tendency to kind of slide to one side or the other. A little annoying. Again, it may be my feet and the way I walk, so please, don't take this as 100% this is going to happen to you. I don't know that for a fact, but it does kind of like tilt the one side or the other, so your foot's not straight in there, so it's kind of kilter or cocked off to one side or the other. It never, though, never gets to the point where my foot is on the ground because of it, but I just find it a little bit kind of like wonky and annoying. Again, it may be the way I walk, maybe my feet, you know, the way I'm securing these on my feet, but it does tend to do that a little bit. But again, and my feet are not making contact with the ground. They're still on top of the foam. The upper of the camp shoe is basically made of the very light material that you would make a pack out of, right? On the sides here, and it's a solid material around the sides. And then on the top, there's a really mesh where it's like a mesh that you'd use for like a front pocket of a pack. I'm hoping that it's just as durable as some of the stuff that they use to make the front pockets out of, and that's sewn to this material around the edge. This design I like a lot because of two reasons. One, it keeps debris out from under your sandal and out from inside of your shoe from getting in between your foot in the sole. And that's been a problem with a lot of the very light camp shoes that I've tried, because they're totally open, that stuff goes in there because the sole is so thin. You're like walking through duff and stuff like that around camp, and it's going inside the shoe all the time. And this really eliminates that, just having your foot enclosed. Now, one of the big reasons that I love camp shoes is so that I can air out my feet and let them warm in the sun or whatever it might be. One thing that I've noticed when I wore these, and I wore them at the beginning, you know, every night of my recent trip, and then I a few weeks ago, and then I wore them actually once I completed the trip, just around to talk to people, because it was like one of those things where we were like eating food afterwards and stuff like that, like around out, you know, an outside area. And so I wanted to rest my feet, so I just threw these on. And what I'll tell you is this mesh is really, really breathable. It is as close as you can get to being open-toed and not being open-toed. I didn't feel like my feet retained like the moisture. I felt like my feet dried really fast, even though I was hiking through water and so forth, when I put these on. And so I think that's a huge plus, because that was actually one of the things I was worried about when I first bought these, like how breathable is this material? And I would say it's as breathable as you get without having an open toe, to be honest with you. So that was really great. So overall, the camp shoes were light, they're packable, they're comfortable, they seem to let your feet just breathe and rest and spread out because they're wide design. And the only thing that, so overall, I think these are really a winner. This is one of the best light camp shoes for really around camp that I've tried. And I've tried quite a few of them, and even ones that I've made. So these have been great so far. The only thing I'm worried about, there's one thing I'm worried about, Now, anything ultralight, you got to watch, right? Because it's made of light materials, might not wear and tear as well as other things. One of the things that I do see here is that underneath the soles, there's actually stitching underneath the shoe around the outside here. Now, I'm not sure what kind of thread they're using, or how abrasion resistant it will be, or the material will be. That material, instead of being like inside the top and sewn, which, it's sewn there too, it's sewn inside the top clear through, but it's also the material is around the outside and then on the bottom of the shoe. And so you can see the stitching there too. And so it's kind of like pinched on there. It's like the material sandwiching the sole, right? And then it's just sewn through the whole way around the shoe. And I worry about that because, number one, you've got the material exposed to the abrasion of of underneath your foot. Now, I will say this, not a lot of your weight's gonna be on the edges of these soles, right? But scuffing, right, on rocks and things like that. And I'm wondering how this is gonna wear over time with the thread and so forth. Again, the shoes I think were in the mid 30s in terms of cost. So that's not too bad for an ultralight shoe. And I feel like it's gonna last long enough. I just got this gut that's gonna last long enough that I'm not gonna feel like I've wasted my money, buying something that's just like next year is not gonna be working. if this is used not for hiking, you know what I mean, and not for things it's not meant to be used for. So that is one thing that I worry about a little bit. The bungees seem fine. The design seems fine. I don't see any areas where I would feel like there's, you know, potential for any serious wear. Obviously the stretchy material, you know, again, if you're just using them as camp shoes, you're not wandering through the woods and, you know, you know, I could see where sticks or something could poke holes in this. But overall, I think they're great shoes. They're really comfortable. They're so nice to have on at the end of the day of hiking. I just really getting into these things felt really good. So that's my overall impressions of the Zpacks camp shoe. I think it's a winner. I think it's something that, quite honestly, that I would recommend if you're just looking for something to wear around camp. It's gonna be comfortable on your feet. I could also see using these with like sealskin socks, even in the wintertime, because you want your feet to spread out and stretch, right? So I could see using these around camp in the wintertime with maybe some sealskin socks or something like that, so you're not like getting, you know, snow or whatever in you know, on your socks and getting your feet wet. So that's the Zpacks shoes. That's my impression of the Zpacks shoes. If you have any comments, experience with the Zpacks camp shoes, let me know below. Ask questions about my use of them. I'm going to be taking them with me on the With the Highline in a couple of weeks or so from now. And so I have more days. And if I find out anything new about the shoe that I don't like, that I like, I'm going to let you know when I get back, when I do my review of all the gear I took with me. So until next time, backpackers, get out there, do some backpacking, do some hiking. Stop watching YouTube videos, unless they're mine. Then watch them all from start to finish. Later, backpackers.